The wonderful and exhausting thing about music production is that you will always find something new to learn. Right now, for me, that is really honing in on designing my guitar sounds. I have a lot of great plugins, but that doesn't matter because on their own, they always use a sound something like this. That sounded a little bit flat, weak, generic. So I spent a lot of time researching and practicing, and now my guitars, they're sounding a lot better these days. Hey, it's Onesto, and on this channel, we explore the latest tools and the time-tested techniques that will help our lives stay musical, creative, and happy. For today's video, I want to show you 3 big lessons that have really helped my guitar sound design go from amateur to pro. Today, I'll be using Guitar Rig 7 Pro from Native Instruments. You can absolutely use stock and free plugins, but I find that Guitar Rig 7 Pro has everything I can ever need. It streamlines the process and honestly makes it really easy for me to show you what I'm doing. If you want to try Guitar Rig 7 Pro for free, there's a link below to a free demo. So Stan Hollow, he's an artist who's forever changed how I approach sound design. And whenever he breaks down any of his guitar effects, I'm always shocked at how much he prioritizes simplicity and imperfection. For example, one classic Stan Hollow guitar sound is simply the guitar to an amp to a tape wobble, it's like vibrato, and finally reverb. That's it. Sometimes that's all he uses, and it sounds like this. And if you want to improve it some more, you can sprinkle in some fast, gentle compression, an EQ, add a noise layer, and then you might get something like this. I never thought that a guitar change could be this simple and still sound so impactful. I always overcomplicate things. It's something that I like to do, but things can really be this simple. And I hope that you look at his example and get inspired to see how unique you can make something sound with as few components as possible. You really don't have to overcomplicate things. And when it comes to adding in imperfections, it's not so much how you play, but more so about bringing imperfections into the sound quality. Stan Hollow does that with a free plugin called M Vibrato from Melda Productions. There's a link below for that, of course. And in this example, I'm using a new guitar rig component called Tape Wobble. One reason why I love Tape Wobble so much is because it has a knob called Scrape, which adds almost like a bit crushed feel to the higher frequencies. Yeah, I just think it adds a ton of emotion and mood to whatever I'm playing. So let's take out the Tape Wobble, let's take out the noise layer, and just take out all the imperfections and just hear the difference between the two. Like, it still sounds good, but if you add in those ugly bits back, things get way more interesting. While simplicity and imperfection is a great lens for approaching sound design, a common creative pitfall is feeling like we need to reinvent the wheel and do something that's never been done before. But I've learned multiple times that the wheel already exists. I find that whenever I chase after uniqueness, I never arrive and nothing gets done. I don't know if that happens to you, but it really, really sucks. So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel by experimenting with different amps, cabs, and effects, I try to find what already works instead of trying to discover what works on my own. And to find those guitar recipes, I look to resources like YouTube, Reddit, blogs, and of course, presets in amp, sim plugins, or DAWs. For example, here's something that I found on a video from Echo Soundworks. It's a guitar change that was used in an Millennium track, so here's how that sounds. Yeah, it sounds really great. Have I heard that guitar sound before? Yeah, I have. It's super classic. I wouldn't say it's creative or new, but I'm almost always going to like how this sounds, so I certainly save this as a preset for later. Here's another chain that I found on reverb.com. I'll list links down below so you can copy this later. You can see that this example is a bit more complex, and it would have taken me a very long time to come up with this myself. And in the past, I would have felt like I was cheating if I copied this chain, but it's not cheating. In fact, when building this out, I still added my own little twist to it. It's not a replica. This is always an experiment. In this example, I tested out a lot of different amps and cabs to see what tones I can end up with. And in the end, I landed on the AC Box XV because I thought it sounded gorgeous. And you'll see this little ICM here. And that just means that machine learning was used to bring the analog real-life amp and cab to this plugin. So in the end, the machine learning helps things sound a lot more authentic. So this tip covers like 80% of what I need guitars to do in my tracks. It's so helpful, and I want to just reassure you that it's okay to not to make everything from scratch. Use the resources available to you, and you don't have to feel icky about it. But let's say that you really want to dive in deeper, and one way you can do that is to layer your tones and your sounds. So much of sound design is layering things together. You do that with vocals, percussion, leads, pretty much everything. And I'm pretty far from mastering layering, but one thing that's always worked for me is layering something simple with something that's saucy. Madeon is another hero of mine, and I love the way that he layers the simple with the saucy in the bass track of All My Friends. And here's something that I put together. So this bass has a bottom layer and a top layer. The bottom is super simple, warm, round, and it holds the low end down. It's a vintage bass guitar run through a bass amp, compressor, and a new Guitar Rig 7 distortion effect called Color. Color is awesome. You can choose between 10 different distortion models, and I chose a trash harmonic setting, which might be familiar if you use trash from Isotope. So here's how that bottom layer sounds on its own. You can totally run with that on its own, but we're going to take it a step further by adding on a top bass layer that's going to be the saucy effects heavy bass. This is a bit more complex. I took a slap bass, I ran it through a transient designer, jazz amp and cab, compressor, phaser, some EQ, vintage reverb, flanger, another compressor, and limiter. So yeah, that's a lot. But in the end, that top layer sounds like this. Super funky, it's super fun, but you can see why the base layer needs to be simple and even plain. The top layer has a lot of great things going on, you don't want to miss it, but at the same time, it needs that bass support. So when we combine both simple and saucy together, they work together to give you a strong and super funky sound. Without the bottom layer, and back with it. So if you enjoy learning about building great guitar tones but are thinking of what guitar plugin to get next, you're going to love my video about my 4 favorite guitar VSTs. Thanks so much for watching. Later.